Hey everyone, welcome to the Be Bold, Make Waves podcast, a show bringing you inspiring stories of women who are growing and scaling their business. I'm your host, Laura Cormier, a website and tech integration specialist who works with online business owners who love their work and not their website. Join me as we have incredible conversations about business, mindset, productivity, and of course, the website and tech behind the business. Let's go ahead and dive in to this week's episode. Hello and welcome to today's show. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Laura Cormier, a website and tech automation specialist who works with women who love their work, but not their website. I am so excited to bring my guest and good friend to the show today, Amanda Cormier. Amanda is the brand designer and owner of Catching Creative. If you're ready to stand out from your competitors and all the noise by wowing with cohesive branding for your products, services, courses, and more, you need Amanda in your corner. She's been helping women-led businesses build the know, like, and trust factor, as well as their confidence through clear and consistent branding for over 15 years. Amanda, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Can you tell our listeners just a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to be here, Laura. Thanks for having me. As you mentioned in my bio, I've been doing this for 15 years. I took design school, so I'm officially trained. Not that that matters these days. But I started in the print industry in 2006, and that it was pretty apparent that the print industry was changing at that point. And I've always sort of been the kind of person that didn't like sitting around and waiting at work. Like it felt like a waste of time. And I got thinking, like, there's a lot of people that freelance. What if I made a switch, left the print industry job at the newspaper and went into business for myself? Like, what really did I have to lose instead of waiting for design ads to come through? So my husband, who was just a boyfriend at the time, was super supportive. And I took the leap with one freelance client, like very, very small client, and took the leap and went into business for myself and been doing it ever since. I had one client who hired me, and I had a brief stint in corporate for about 4 years, and then went back to doing business on my own. And I have to say, I truly, truly, truly love the freedom. It's not all roses all the time, as you know, but there's a lot of great benefits to being self-employed. So that's kind of how I got here.
I love that so much. I know that we had met, just so our audience kind of knows our backstory. We were both in a program together a number of years ago, and we had kind of chatted a little bit. I don't even remember why, but we had some messenger chats going, I think talking about Denise Duffield Thomas, if I
Probably.
remember correctly.
I think so. Yeah. The manifesting stuff. Yes. I was like, teach me your ways.
And we had been chatting a little bit, and then I saw that you posted, and it was like one of those things that felt very serendipitous to me, where you're like, see a post on social media right after it gets posted, and you kind of posted in there and raised your hand. You were like, I really just love the design piece of it. Can someone else please come do the development? And I remember raising my hand and being like, Amanda,
Yes.
That's me. Let's talk. And
Absolutely.
then that led us to this like amazing partnership that we've formed over the past 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. You did the design for my website, and then we kind of did it. We started off with a trade. You did my design, and then you did the design for your website, and I built your website that you had at the time. And then you did my design. You kind of did a brand refresh for me. And then it was just, I remember I was nervous because oh my gosh, I don't even know if I ever told you this. I remember, you wanted like 3 websites that you love. And I went looking, and I'm like, I'm the worst client ever. I asked my clients for this exact same thing. I can't find a single website that is what I'm looking for. Everything I'm looking at doesn't feel like me. I like it for other people, but it's not me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know what I ended up giving you. And what you came to me with, which anyone can go look at my website right now. Like, that's what Amanda created for me. And it was so on point. And I'm like, this is it. It's perfect.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, it's interesting how it came to be about, because as you mentioned, we just did a trade. So we didn't really know each other very well. I asked you to send me some example websites and snap some photos of the things that you love in your home. We got on a call and we talked a lot about process, because we were like, how is this going to work? Right? Like, how do we test out this because we wanted to see how it would work in a VIP day setting. So we were testing out our processes. But at the same time, I feel like that's one area where I can really kind of help the women that I work with, is that for some reason, I don't know how it comes to me, but I'm able to pull that information out. And you're always telling me that I pulled that out of you. So
Yeah.
I really feel like that's one of my there's a lot of great designers out there. And as I mentioned, I went to design school. Doesn't mean you have to. There's a lot of even more talented designers than I am that can produce excellent work. But are they able to really pull out that essence? And I feel like that's kind of, if you want to say gift, that's might have been a gift that I was given at a young age, is to be able to pull that information out.
100%. Like that is definitely your superpower. And I am all the projects we get on, I'm always so just blown away at what you come up with, because I'm like, this is just so beyond perfect. We had a project that we worked on a year ago that it was a custom illustrated mermaid logo. And I remember you came to me and you're like, okay, I have like 8 that I created. I'm like, they're beautiful. I'm overwhelmed. Like they're all so good. I don't know how the client's going to choose. And I think you knocked it down to 4.
Yes.
Sent it to her, had this amazing Loom video you created, like explaining the reasoning behind every single little piece of that logo. And I remember she came back, she never watched the Loom video. And it was the first one. And you said that was the first one that you had created. And she's like, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Even in the video, you were like, don't even worry about the colors. We can change that. Like she had one tiny little tweak and that was it. And it was done. And it's gorgeous.
It's fun. It's fun to be able to do that. And I'd be curious, if any other designers listen to this, what they experience, with their clients, because you really need to pick up on the verbal cues, the visual cues, and all that sort of thing, and really almost embody yourself in that client and think about what, in their experience, where they're at in their business, what they're going for, where they've been, where they want to go, and also their taste, because their brand needs to represent them, but it also needs to be attractive to the type of people that they're wanting to attract. And when you're working with business owners and you're designing their brands, as much as it's about them and their taste, it needs to represent them, because they need to confidently feel like that's them, because their business is a piece of them. But also it needs to attract the people that they want to attract. And in Dulcie's case, she's very, the mermaid logo, it's very, a big piece of her message was that it was women owned. So, the feminine mermaid piece really needed to shine through. And it was important to come up with a design that was unique and not, cliche, so to speak.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And it was so amazing. Can you talk to our listeners a little bit about branding? I feel like so often someone is like, branding, that's the logo. And you and I both know that is not what branding is. I would love, and I know you have a really amazing analogy that you've told me before that talks about going out to dinner.
Yeah.
And I would love for you to share that with our audience and talk a little bit about branding.
Sure. I think of branding in terms of like your outfit. So if you want to say your logo is like the special top that you bought for going out for dinner, it's the one that, you work the hardest to find, one that fit just perfectly, that didn't, wasn't too cut too short, too tight, whatever the case may be. And then just because you have this amazing shirt, you're not going to go out in your sweatpants or, your maternity jammies that you had 3 years ago. Like, you're going to wear nice pants. You're going to have your hair done. You want to feel confident. And I feel like a brand is about that confidence, but it's about all of the pieces that make up your look.
I love that so much. And I think that's such a great analogy. I remember when you first had told me that, I'm like, that's so good and so important. So when someone's talking and you're like, oh, they're maybe listening to this and I don't love my logo. What other pieces when you go to a new client and you're going to do a new brand for them, what are the components that you're looking at to kind of pull together?
Well, there's a lot of different things that you can think about. And because branding is it's such I think that it might be worth even exploring different words for that, because I feel like it's almost one of those words that's overused a little bit and kind of, watered down a little, because I think that there's a lot that we can do with our brand that's not just a logo. So changing your logo can be quite a large process. So sometimes when I reach out and talk to people and they tell me they don't love their logo, it's just a small piece of that outfit. Like, think about your shirt. It's a small piece. So there's so much that we can do with a brand, in terms of colors, in terms of textures, in terms of patterns, fonts, because the logo, if you think about it, it might be on your, Gmail profile picture. It's on the corner of your website. It might be on the bottom of your social media, but it's really about you feeling like you to show up confidently so that you can share about your business. And that doesn't have to be your logo, although logos are my favorite thing to do, because they're a lot of fun. I don't think it's the most important piece of a brand. I think it's making everything look cohesive, having everything pulled in together so that it looks professional, so that your clients get that know, like, and trust factor really, really easy. I think it's a lot about all the different aspects, making sure everything kind of pulls together.
Yeah,
In terms of messaging and wording and how you interact.
Yeah, the feeling when people come to your website and how
Exactly.
it makes them feel.
Exactly. It's
You
like your
all,
storefront, right? Like, if
Mhm.
you have a store, your logo or your website URL, like that might be like the front of your store, what pulls people in. But when you get inside, like, if it's nice decor and it's great music and it smells a certain way or doesn't smell a certain way, it's that whole experience. And that's what a brand can really do for your clients, is give them that experience and that feeling to make them want to stay, inside your store, aka your business.
I love that. I love that analogy. So we've also done some projects where we weren't doing a new logo and you just have pulled your magic out and been kind of in your zone where you're able to go in and give sort of a refresh. Can you talk a little bit about how you work with people when they're fine with their logo, but they still need that little like facelift, I guess?
Facelift? Yeah. It comes back again to some of those same principles, that it's every aspect. So we all know that cliche, a photo speaks 1,000 words. So, photography is a way to really pull that out. Even just page layout, a lot of the time, that's something that we can work on with clients, and we have worked on with clients where they've provided us information. They may have had a color or two. And even you can even take colors of your brand and keep those in your brand, but add additional colors that kind of become the more important color, so that those other colors are still there. They're still a part of you. It's kind of like when you move, like, right? When you move from one house to the other, your house is different, but you still have maybe the same bed that you had the same clothes, you have the same dresser, but you have a brand new home that you can decorate however you want. So I think that's kind of how I approach the refreshes, is you've got to pull in the pieces that are maybe difficult to change, can't be changed, or shouldn't be changed, and apply that decor style to the look.
I love that so much. So, in your 15 plus years, I know you've worked with a lot of
You're aging
developers.
me here.
No,
Yes, I've worked with a lot of developers.
I would love to hear your perspective as a brand and web designer who works with developers. What's that process look like when you outsource the development piece of it?
Yeah, developers can, and I try to be careful because I don't want to do any stereotypes or anything, but many developers that I've met, those are the developers that I've met, tend to be either quiet, they don't want to be client facing, they know their craft really well, but they have no design eye, or even that attention to detail when it comes to design can be lost. So, I've worked with developers in the past where I would send a design, let's say, and there would be a lot of spacing around a photo, and it would come back and the text would be really tight. But to them, they look at it and say, well, I added the photo and I added the text exactly how you wanted me to, but it was the way that it looked that wasn't the way it was intended. And that's one of the things that I love about working with you, is that, not only do you mind being client facing, you're an excellent project manager, but your design eye is so key. Like when you and I worked on those projects, Laura, like I would send them to you in, Adobe XD. You would send me the draft to review, and it was like pixel perfect, like down to like the font weight. Like sometimes I would say, I think that's a font is a little bit too big. And you would say, no, it's not. But it was like one size, right? It would be like from an 18 point to like a 17 point. I'd be wanting to go to the 17, but these are the kinds of conversations that we would have. We would argue over font sizes.
I love that. I was thinking about that today. I was on a call for a summit that I'm speaking at this week at the time of recording, and there was an accessibility presentation that was absolutely fascinating. And they were talking about font sizes and the difference a lot of times in a mock-up that it'll look really, really big. Mm-hmm. But then when it's on, like, it needs to be big enough for people to read for accessibility. And I immediately thought about how that's like the one thing that we will go back and forth on.
We will go back and forth. Size. Right. You usually win. Your accessibility and tech stuff. So I leave that to you. But we've been able to streamline our process, and it's really fun working together because you're so great at all of that tech stuff, but that design eye is really what sets you apart, I feel, from many developers that I've worked with, because you're also able to see the bigger picture, which when you're working on a client project, you and I can do a lot of collaboration that I haven't been able to do with other developers. I did work with a gentleman years ago who we had a pretty good relationship with, but you and I connect on very different things too. We're both moms, we're both running a business, but we're able to collaborate from a work perspective with the client's goal in mind, and not what might be easier for development, because I've sent you some pretty tricky things that you were able to pull off, right? And so because the client's big goals are your big goals for the project, we're able to collaborate and figure out how to make it happen, which I feel sometimes can be a stumbling block with developers, because they might not be willing to do that collaboration, past a couple of times. But you and I will get on and we'll massage until we get it absolutely right, until we're both happy with it, tech wise and design wise, which is awesome.
I love that. I think that's such an important point, that like at the end of the day, the client goals is really like the utmost important, because I know for me and for you, client experience is such a huge like core value. I want my clients to have an amazing experience.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely.
So, yeah,
that's why we do what we do, right?
That is, I love it. So I would love to know, I want to talk a little bit about some mindset struggles, because as business owners, like we all have them, like imposter syndrome, all the things come up. What would you say are some of the like mindset hurdles you've overcome to get to where you are today?
I think one of the things with me is confidence has always been an area. I don't think that I'm necessarily I don't think that I'm not comfortable in my own skin, like when I'm out doing my regular day-to-day stuff. But when it comes to showing up for my business, like doing podcasts like this, they make me a little nervous. I'm not sure if I sound right. I'm not sure if I'm going to fumble over my words. And so that's kind of a mindset that I'm still working on, and why I'm so passionate about being able to work with other business owners to make them feel confident in showing up for their business, because I know how it can feel on the other end. And the other piece is that I feel like I'm starting to, it's always a work in progress, right? But, worrying about what others think, there's people don't really notice, like, some people might be afraid to talk about what they do because they feel like they just talked about it last week. But like, I can't remember what my sister posted yesterday on Facebook, but as business owners, I feel like we think that all eyes are on us, and really it's not. And when you're passionate about what you do, it's okay to talk about it, and you should talk about it, and you should be confident to talk about it. So that's kind of a mindset thing that I've been struggling with and trying to get better at.
I think those are such good mindset hurdles that you've been going through. I know I personally have struggled with both of those as well. Especially like the visibility piece. It took me a long time to like get comfortable with getting more visible. And a lot of it for me was just baby steps.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
And also for me, it was saying yes to things when I really wanted to say no. So I remember the first time I was invited to speak at a summit, I got the email and I probably ignored it. The first thought that went through my head was, no, I do not want to speak at your summit. I don't know what I would talk to or how I would bring value to anyone. And then she emailed me again and was like, hey, just making sure you got this. Do you want to speak at my summit? I'm like, no, I don't. I'm like, yes, I would love to. Thank you for the opportunity. And inside I was just like, oh.
Totally. Just like this interview today. Didn't I message you and say, oh, I'm so nervous for our podcast interview, but now that I'm here and I'm doing it, it's great. And one thing, if I can pass out any kind of advice, and I heard it somewhere, I probably heard it a million places, but it's, what would your future self thank you for, right? Like future Laura is probably thanking Laura for saying yes to that summit, right? I think it kind of puts things into perspective a little bit so that in the moment, it's not so scary.
I cannot love that anymore. I've always gone with, in 5 years, is this still something that like would matter? Like, are you still going to feel that way in 5 years? Like, think about like, again, future, but I like the way that was phrased much better because it feels less.
And if you can think about yourself in the future tense,
mm-hmm.
it sort of changes what you think, because right now it's hard, but we all know, we've all done the hard things, and we all know once we do it, hey, it wasn't so bad, right? Yeah. So I like that one.
It's like ripping off the Band-Aid, just get through it.
Like ripping off the Band-Aid, exactly.
Oh, I love that. So I would love to know, I love talking tech, you know this.
Yes.
And I love helping you with tech because tech is my favorite thing. What's like a tech that you've come across that in your business that you just were not expecting? And it kind of like, I know for me, when I launched my DIY website launch kit and I sent out the email, like I was sending out, it's coming. And then I set out that like, it's here. And it was actually you who immediately wrote back to me and said, I hope, like, I'm so sorry to be the one to tell you this. There is no link in this entire email. I was like,
oh no. Oh yeah, that's a tech headache for sure.
I love shining a light on some of these things because I think it happens to all of us. And I think it's important to talk about them and talk about, like, again, I saw a photo the other day. It was like, here's the world before you did that scary thing. And here's the world after, like, and it was the exact same photo.
Yeah. For me, I'm just afraid of tech, and I feel like it's always changing and it's always uncomfortable. Like I don't use a lot of tech in my business. I have a lot of automation set up that I've outsourced to have that done. But it's going in and making changes. It's always foreign. And that's one thing that I love about working with you, is that anytime you're working on a tech piece, I've got the video there, right, where I can go in and reference it. For example, today I was updating an appointment type in Acuity scheduling, and I'm like, where do I go to update this? And I just don't No. So because my tech in my business right now is quite limited, I don't experience like super crazy tech hiccups other than user error. But just going and getting refamiliarized with the tech, I feel like is a constant hiccup for me.
I can feel that too, because I know there's some things that I do that later I'm like, it's when you don't do something often and then you
Often,
go back, you're like, I know I've done this before. I don't necessarily remember how I did it or where I did it. And that can feel really frustrating. It feels like you're starting over every time, relearning this thing. And you're like, I know I did it. Where was it? And they might have updated things on like the
yes,
interface and it might look a little different. And
yes,
so, yes, I can definitely relate to that for sure.
yeah, that's me every day, every day.
Well, here on my podcast, I love to celebrate our wins and really
Mhm.
cheer each other on and just talk about some like amazing achievements we've done. I would love to know, Amanda, what's something that we could celebrate that you're really proud of yourself that you've done in your business?
Oh, that's a difficult question. Um, I think for me, it goes back to that confidence thing and getting past the mindset and of that and doing the hard things. Like, and each day it can be different. Some days, when you've had a sleepless night because somebody had a nightmare and then somebody woke up not feeling well and then somebody has an earache and then the dog and the cat and you get up and you have a meeting at 8 a.m. and you're trying to get everybody out the door and you just go to the meeting and you do the thing and you show up. That at that moment is the hard thing. But then there's other things in your business where you have to do some kind of important presentation in front of a whole bunch of people and you're like, there's no way I can do this, and you go through and you do it. I feel like that's a win for me in my business because I keep pushing myself to do the hard things, and I know that future Amanda is going to thank me for it. But even more than that, it's going to help me grow. And when we feel those moments of this is hard, I don't want to do this, that we know that we're growing. And so I try to celebrate that always.
Oh, I love that. I think that's so good. And I love the future Amanda reference. I'm definitely going to be implementing a lot of future Laura references going
We'll
forward.
be
So
messaging future selves back and forth.
thank you for that nugget today. And I think it is important. I mean, we have when it feels uncomfortable, like there's also a difference of like things like I just don't want to do it,
Exactly.
and also like pushing yourself to grow.
Yes.
And I think it's important to continue to push ourselves to grow into the person that future Laura is going to be. So I
Yeah.
love that so much.
Yeah.
What would you say that you're doing? I mean, there's lots of brand designers in the industry. What's something you're doing that's being bold in the industry? Something that's maybe making a little waves and just being a little standing you out a little different from a lot of other people.
One thing I've been really experimenting with is this idea of sub-branding or branding all of the elements in your business. So if you think about that as like digital products or your signature service or a course that you've done, um, because I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I really want to help people get confidence. And I feel like if they can brand their offer, they might feel more comfortable talking about that offer. Or if they have, a nicely put together download lead magnet with like a logo that they can then pop up on social media, it's not only going to get them recognition, but they're going to feel confident to share it because it feels like a thing. So I'm working through really how to kind of describe this to people because I don't think sub branding really resonates. It's like branding, your offer suite. Like if you think of, some of the, bigger players in the industry, like if you could think about the Amy Porterfields, like we all recognize when they put out a new offer and put out a new thing. And I really want to help the smaller business owners, the solopreneurs, be able to get that same level of recognition and memorability and confidence in their branding. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now.
I love that so much. I think that is important. I know I have a mindset struggle I had for a long time, many years, was a lead magnet and knowing
Mm-hmm.
like what to put together, what would bring value. And then I don't know exactly how it happened. Somehow I got through that hurdle and created something, probably the baby steps, micro actions, as my coach, Bevan Farron, would say. Do the micro actions, just make it smaller, smaller, smaller steps.
Right.
And in getting one out, and it probably wasn't the prettiest thing. It was just like, do it messy. Let's
Do it
quote this
messy.
messy. I'm going to just start name dropping all my coaches in this one. And just getting it out there. And then as I've refined and like continued to create more and more different freebies, I know the last few, I've really kind of gone over the top in making them really, really designed and really pretty. And it feels really good.
Yeah, you feel like you're kind of delivering. There's nothing wrong with doing it messy. And if you're comfortable like with that and that works, that's great. But there's something about feeling really proud. Like you released that lead magnet and you were kind of probably like, the emoji when you first, but you were like, oh, it's done and it's good and it's there and people are going to get value out of it. So that's great. But if you can add that extra level of polish, you're kind of like, oh yeah, like my lead magnets, like,
Exactly.
so
I'm feeling that confidence.
feeling that confidence. Yes. Yes.
Oh,
Not everything needs to be, 100% special or, branded by a designer, but there's things that you can do very, very simple. It's actually a lead magnet that I'm working on right now is ways for people to be able to take their main brand and take the ideas from that and easily create some of this sub-branding stuff for themselves so that they know when they create a lead magnet and they have a title for it, they could easily whip up, a logo in Canva so that they feel like it's a thing.
I love that.
Yeah.
I know that I find a lot of the times when people are just starting out, they get very hung up on their logo and
Yes.
pulling that together. Can you speak on what your advice would be to someone who's like just starting out in their business and they're kind of stuck at this logo phase and they
I would
haven't launched yet, holding
I
them
would
back?
say do a text logo, like just type something because when you're just starting your business, chances are things are going to change. You're going to start somewhere. You might feel maybe it's not hitting with your audience. You might not like that idea that you thought. You might change your mind and dabble a little bit over here and over there. And before you know it, you've kind of shifted your entire business. So I definitely don't think that it's something that new business owners should start with right away. I think it's something that grows and you really your brand, your business brand needs to be a representation of you, but you also need to know what that business stands for and what the purpose of that business is. And those are the things that once you kind of have those foundational elements that you can really bring in to branding and really create a logo at that point. I would say in the beginning, a text logo is completely fine, unless you're going down the route of trademarking something very early on, then, text logo probably wouldn't work, but that would be my advice.
I love that so much. Yeah, it's something that I know I see, like, especially in the other Facebook entrepreneurial groups, that people
Mhm.
get so hung up on the logo and then they don't launch the thing. And my advice is always the same as what you said. Just make a text logo. You can always go back later.
You can
Just
always go back there.
launch your business, go
Launch your
get some
business,
clients,
go get clients. Exactly.
put
And we
together
know logo is not the be all end all of your brand. You can have the same logo that you started with, and you could have this amazing brand because people are going to recognize, either the face of the brand, like yourself, they're going to recognize colors, they're going to recognize sounds, they're going to recognize patterns. People start, when they see things over and over, they start to recognize those things. And it's not just going to be your logo. If you think about your website, your logo is like, how much of real estate is that logo? Like 5%? over your entire website. So it's the words, it's everything about it. It's that feeling. And you can get feelings from logos, but it's not the feeling. It's not the thing that's going to make or break your business. So, save your money, go in Canva, type something, export a PNG, because maybe in 2 weeks, you might feel differently and want to change it and have new ideas. That's the other thing, right? About starting a business, you've got all these great ideas. And so you're better off implementing your great ideas than you are spending time and energy trying to create the perfect logo for day one.
Such good advice. I love that so much. Amanda, I could talk to you all day long.
Likewise.
I have one final question that I ask everyone who comes on the show. And that is, what is one piece of advice you would give to someone when they're first starting out that would help them be bolder, be louder, and make waves in their business?
The advice I would give is, even when it's uncomfortable, just talk about what you do. Talk about how you help people. It can feel like you're being salesy, but the reason you go into business is because you essentially want to help someone. You have something that you can do to help them, and someone's looking for that help. And you're almost doing them a disservice if you don't talk about it. So, create your presentation, create your website so that you feel like, yeah, that's good. Just the same as you would, like, maybe you didn't have a chance to go buy a new outfit to go to dinner, but you might have one that you had a couple of years ago that still sort of works. Your hair's looking good that day. You feel great. You feel confident enough to go out and talk about it. Go out and talk about it, because that's how you're really going to be able to make waves in your own business, is by talking about it so that people know all of your wonderful gifts.
Such great advice. I love that so much. Amanda, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Can you tell our listeners where they can come connect with you and hang out with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Laura. It was so much fun. You can find me online. My website is catchingcreative.ca. I'm pretty quiet on the Instagram and Facebook front. Right now, I'm working on some things behind the scenes, and I've got, a stack of client work. So not so great in following my own advice about talking about what I do, but here we are, baby steps, the micro baby steps. So that's you can find me at Catching Creative on Instagram or Facebook.
Wonderful. I will link all that up in the show notes. Thank you again for coming on today.
Thank you, Laura. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to check out the show notes at lauracomark.com/podcast. And if you're ready to turn your website into a marketing machine, get more sales, save time, and simplify the back end of your business, grab my free resource, Power Integrations for your website. Head on over to lauracomark.com/power. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe. And also, I'll just love you forever if you leave me a review. It helps get this podcast in front of other people that can help inspire. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next week. Bye now.